When Hamas brutally ambushed Israel on Saturday, Democratic Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey was in Jerusalem for meetings about the Abraham Accords. And Senator Booker joins us now here on set. He's a member of the Foreign Relations Committee. So many nightmare stories that you experienced firsthand with the people you were with. Where do we begin? Tell us about it.
I mean, the jarring juxtaposition of being there, rushing out of the Senate to get there early for Simchas Torah, for a celebration. The night before, I'm in shul dancing with the Torah. Later that evening, I go to a Shabbat dinner where my guest, who's here with us in studio, Liz Naftali, and my host, the next morning, by the next day, they both had tragically lost family in the most horrifically unimaginable way. I was jogging that morning as the sun was coming up in the old city, just feeling so much joy and hope for the peace mission we were on, and get a call from my chief of staff to run back to the hotel because Israel's under attack.
And then how long did you stay? How did you get out? And I want to ask you about the politics at home and how that is impacting our ability to be effective in this or not.
I mean, Israel's such a small country. The stunning of going in and out of the bomb shelter, a good part of that day was to see the effect, the slow dawning of not just people understanding what was happening, but people being directly connected, losing family members, the horrors, and seeing the effect on families who on the holiday couldn't look at their phone, but we were getting information. And in the next 24 hours, from the president calling me to the State Department, we knew we needed to leave because we were sucking resources and energy. But more importantly, I was not going to let this terrorist organization undermine what is the most hopeful period I've seen for real peace in that region.
And yet hope today is diminishing rapidly given the just savagery of what has happened there.
Well, this is part of Hamas's plan. Understand this. This is an organization that was founded not to stop the state of Israel. This was an organization founded to kill Jews. This is an ISIS-like, Nazi-like organization. And understand, look at Amnesty International's reports, they kill their own people. They kill Palestinian people.
Right.
They kill, torture, abduct Palestinians. And they plotted this attack, targeting civilians, killing children, not just because of the viciousness and nature of this evil organization based on hate, but they did it in a way that echoed what they did right after the Oslo Accords. You have Arafat and Rabin getting the Nobel Peace Prize with a pathway to peace, and what is their response? To attack Israeli civilians, kill, murder, bomb buses to try to derail a pathway to peace. And so what was hopeful to me, and I will return to the region, to Saudi Arabia within days with a bipartisan small group of senators, because one of the best ways to defeat them is to show there's still a pathway to peace, that they didn't frustrate it. But remember, MBS, Saudi Arabia's leader, goes on Fox News and says unequivocally, every day we are closer to a peace plan. The Palestinians are a critical part of that. Our discussions and dialogues, the United States, with the Netanyahu administration, with Palestinians themselves. First time since 1967 that Saudi Arabia sends a delegation back to the West Bank. Everyone was preparing for reestablishing a pathway to peace, reestablishing this two-state solution, reestablishing dignity, security, and their own state for the Palestinians. And who goes after to destroy that is this organization based on hate.
Yeah, I was there with the president when he met with Prime Minister Netanyahu on the sidelines of the UN just a few weeks ago, and there was real hope for that process. We've heard from President Biden and forcefully, and members of his cabinet who are in Israel as we speak, saying the U.S., of course, and the Biden administration standing with Israel. But there's only so much they can do in the short term without a Congress, without a Speaker of the House. And there are seemingly Republicans are no closer to getting one anytime soon. So tell us your level of concern as to what you're able to do, limiting what the Senate can do, what Congress can do, if the Republicans can't get their house in order.
First of all, I'm grateful for senators on both sides of the aisle, the conversations I've had, the focus we've had in the Senate, leaders about the crises before us. Ukraine, we must stand with the Ukrainians unequivocally, and we must continue to support that effort. Now we have a crisis in Israel. We must stand with Israel unequivocally, support our ally. They have been attacked resolutely. We must deal with the challenges in that region, setting up a humanitarian corridor, trying to help relieve the humanitarian crisis now in Gaza. And we must fund our government that at this time there are critical things that's going on in the State Department and other areas that are critical. That what's happening in the House of Representatives does not in any way reflect the majority of Republicans and the majority of Democrats. It is a far right-wing faction that is creating situations that none of us at this table have ever seen before. And so I don't know how they are going to resolve this. I actually have a hope that the Republicans will understand this is a unique time. We see a coalition government in Israel. Why not turn to the Democrats and say, we're willing to make compromise with you in order to get out of this dysfunction and begin to focus on the issues. Whether it's a short period of time or not, let's make let the center hold and let's make a deal. I'm hoping that wiser minds will come up with a bipartisan way forward. And going back to the Senate this week, I am grateful that people know their priorities as I work with senators from Joni Ernst to Lindsey Graham, despite any differences we have, to focus on the mission ahead of us.
Senator, you're a thoughtful guy. You've just left a region that's been on fire for decades. Have you ever focused on the idea that we are sort of a nation of innocence in terms of dealing with war? We're separated by oceans. History has been very kind to us. War to many of us is a cemetery, a headstone in the cemetery, Arlington, things like that. But we don't live in a country where you get up in the morning and you could lose your life because you're a Jew. A simple fact of faith. You could lose your life because you're a Jew. What do we do about getting the United States of America, its people, more cognizant of the dangers in that region of the world, including Ukraine? More cognizant of the threat that's beyond our borders.
You know, there's a Hebrew phrase that I learned 30 years ago on my first trip to Israel, Gamza Latova. In everything, there's a purpose. For me, it's what I was thinking when I was there during a missile strike, because we do have a naivete, or maybe just this privilege, I should say, that we often don't fully appreciate. People in that region, Palestinians, Israelis, have spent a lot of time in bomb shelters. They know people who have died. When I traveled to the rest of the Middle East on this trip, I was in Jordan, UAE, Bahrain. They understand the fragility of living amidst insecurity. But what was amazing to me with these Arab leaders looking me in the eye, Arab leaders from different sectors, and saying, Hamas is evil, they are thugs, they are Arab leaders telling me they are the impediment, they do not stand for Islam, they're betraying the Palestinian people. And they had receipts that most Americans forget in history of all the things that Hamas has done to undermine a pathway to bringing to that region what they yearn for, to normalize with Israel, to share resources. Right now, there are projects going on in Jordan to share water and energy from solar arrays, where the UAE is involved. There is so much going on that most of us don't know, but in the Senate, we do know it. That's why I'm one of the co-founders of the Abraham Accords. So I am not going to let this evil organization, who Arab leaders are saying must be taken out if there's going to be a pathway to peace. But I know that the pathway to peace is something that we have to double down on more than ever, because Palestinians deserve human rights. They deserve their own state. Israel deserves security and their own state, the right to exist, the right to thrive. But more importantly, hearing Arab leaders understand that it's not just about peace and security. We can go to a higher level: technology, innovation, energy, prosperity. That's the future of the Middle East. And we all in America have to do everything we can to support that end.
So, Senator, Jonathan Lemire talked about some of the challenges we're facing here at home in Washington that impact our ability not only to function as a government, but also to lead by example in the world. And there's another big story that's kind of, we haven't really gotten to it given everything that's going on. And that is Senator Bob Menendez, a superseding indictment now, charging him of conspiracy to act as a foreign agent for Egypt. You're a member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. He was head of it. You're on the Senate Judiciary Committee. Do you think he should step down?
Yes. But let me just say to you very pointedly, I think this is more personal to me than any other senator. Bob and I have served together for 10 years. He's been my senior senator. Nothing in these indictments comport with the man I know. Their indictments are shocking, sensational, and I defended him in his first corruption trial, where he was not just, it wasn't a hung jury, 11 out of the 12 jurors said he was innocent. This rises to a level where I said he should step down, not because he's guilty. He deserves a presumption of innocence.
But an indictment of this sort, to get to an indictment, you know that
we are as public officials, it's not just the ethics level, it's not just the criminal level. There's another level that's important, which is the public trust. And I said in a long statement that I believe he should step down because of that, focus on defending himself against these charges. I'm hoping he comes to that conclusion, but at the end of the day, that's his choice. There will now be ethics processes going on, criminal proceedings going on. This is a very difficult time. But again, the direct answer to your question, do I think he should step down? Yes.
Democratic Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey, thank you very much for coming in during this really difficult time to try and make sense of it all.